Welcome to SHOWstudio's Fashion Radio, the podcast and video series exploring the remarkable relationship between fashion and music. Every week, I'll be joined by fashion's biggest names and the talent of tomorrow as they share their 10 life-defining tunes and the stories behind them. I'm your host, DJ Fatzoni, and today I'm joined by one of the industry's finest journalists of our time, whose name has been associated with a never-ending list of titles like ID, The Face, The Observer, The Sunday Times, GQ, and now the Evening Standard. He's no stranger to books either. He's the author of various music memoirs, including Jim Morrison and David Bowie, to name but a few. Of course, it's got to be the one and only Dylan Jones. Welcome, and thank you so much for coming in. You're one of my, I was going to say oldest friends. Be careful. No, be very careful. How many years have I known you now?
I would say that we have known each other probably for 40 years.
Yeah, easily, yeah.
I think it's maybe a little bit before that. Maybe 83, 84.
Yeah, that week that you were gay in 83.
I think it was slightly longer than that, but yeah, it was around then.
I always say that story to people.
Or it may even been earlier. Did you ever go to White Trash? I can't remember.
Of course I did, yeah. Saturday nights at Planet.
Saturday nights in Piccadilly, and that was 82.
Denzel's club, yeah. Yeah. Down the little archway.
And Paul Burns.
Paul Burns stock.
I interviewed Denzel for my book on the New Romantics, and it's so weird. He hadn't changed.
Yeah.
He looked exactly the same.
Yeah.
Still was incredibly charming. And literally that week, he had retired from his position. He had he was a counsellor. NHS counsellor, and he'd literally retired that week. So in the intervening 40 years that we hadn't seen each other, he'd had a whole life. It's kind of extraordinary.
It's mad, isn't it? Because you kind of, when we think about people from that time and we don't know what they do, we just think that they're still doing what they were doing. You know, most of my circle of friends are still doing the job that they did when I first met them, like Kate Moss, for instance. You know, all these different people are still masters of what they do because they stood the test of time, because they are a master of what they do.
Yeah, but I don't think. I think the attraction of nightlife is that you have all these people coming in and out. Some people you don't see for ages. I remember when was it? Because I started going to clubs meaningfully in about 79, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I did sort of 9 years. And I remember I was in the Groucho with Andrew Hale from Sade.
Yeah, love Andrew.
Rob Ryan, maybe John Futrell, possibly even Bob Elms. I can't remember. And someone said there's a new club, so we went to the new club. And after dinner, and it was at the Astoria.
Yeah.
And the Dominion Astoria. And we walked in, and it's the bar's shut. It's a bit weird. Just no one at the bar. Because the bar wasn't shut. It was just no one at the bar. And then we got our drinks, went into the auditorium, and it was like a switch, because everyone in there was about 5 or 6 years younger than we were. They all had white T-shirts, bandanas, and had these bottles of water, and we all looked at each other and went, no. And that was it. And I remember and then I sort of stopped going to nightclubs.
Was that Sin, or was that Orange Stone Nuts? It was one of those rave nights, wasn't it?
I was a Thursday night. I can't remember.
Yeah.
The same week I went to Shoom.
Yeah.
And that was quite fun.
Was that your turning point for you not going clubbing anymore?
Yeah. And I just thought, I'm done. I spent 10 years doing it, and it was fantastic. And then I remember going to... I didn't go, so clubs had just stopped. And then about a couple of years later, I think Robin, who'd been working in Milan or Paris, had come back from
Robin
London.
Derrick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, again, we were in the Groucho Club. And we were some girls, and they wanted to go clubbing. And someone said, there's this new thing called Quiet Storm. We go, okay, fine. And we went. We queued up. And it's like weird. And we actually had a conversation and said, do you think we'll get in? It was so weird. And then we got to the door, and someone was on the door that we know, and they literally said, I haven't seen you for a while, and come in. And it was so weird. I mean, I do love it. I loved it so much. It was fantastic. But I didn't want to do it again. I'm not a great one for nostalgia, and I don't mean that in a mean way.
No, I get you totally. There's certain people that are in the past for a reason. I knew you when you were clubbing. And you know, we had dojos, and we had all of those amazing things that were on every night of the week. We don't have that culture anymore.
I bet we do.
We don't. That club.
I don't think, the thing is, I don't think I would hope that people who were our age when they started doing that, when they're 17, 18, I'm sure their worlds are just as rich, if not richer. And I'm sure they're having a fantastic time. It's like pop music. You can't say my pop music's better than your pop music.
No.
It just isn't.
What I'm saying to you is in London right now and around the world, in London, we don't have weekly clubs anymore. It's now moved on to events.
Do you know that?
100%.
Well, I suppose you would. It's your world. I mean, I don't know.
Profession, bloody hell. So it's all gone about events and festivals. That's where it's gone to. But don't get me wrong, because what happens, like, as we know, we've been around for so many years, that will come back round full circle. Right, listen, what do you listen to, right? So this is Fashion Radio. This is about music and fashion and how they blend and where they cross over. Yeah. You've had a very, very, very long career working in fashion. You know, being the editor of GQ, doing all of those stuff that you've done from ID right the way back. You've been at the forefront of fashion. To look at you,
how
you
weird.
wouldn't look like it.
How weird.
You look like a librarian.
I never think that that I have had a career in fashion.
No, but I don't. No, I know you don't, but that's the magic of it, because you've had one of the longest careers. You know, you're one of those legends of that fashion industry that, you know, from the very early days of ID right the way to GQ, and now even at the Standard, what you do is you're still at the forefront of it, whether it be with the British Fashion Council, all of those things that you've done and you've had your finger in a lot of those fashion pies.
I know I've had a long career and parts of it have been very successful, but I've always considered that I've been in journalism.
Yeah. No,
fashion has been a kind of, it's always felt like a byproduct.
I really quite like that, the fact that you didn't look at it as being in fashion, but you were. I mean, how many suits do you actually own?
I probably have about 120.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, they're all the same. During Men's Fashion Week, when we launched LCM with Prince Charles all those years ago, every 6 months we would have there'd be like a load of requests for media, and there would invariably be a Japanese couple who would come, very enthusiastic, and, you know, with their cameras and do the whole thing. And they say, "What's your style regime?" and they always look very disappointed because I get up, I put a white shirt on, a blue suit, and I walk to work, and that's it. And that's what I've done forever.
What do you listen to lift your mood at home? When you're getting ready in the morning, when you're putting on your blue suit and your shirt, what do you listen to?
Well, I don't listen to anything because I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
If you get home and you're in a really bad mood, you know, for you, what track really does it for you?
Actually, I used to, and actually before I went to clubs, dance music was such an important part of my life, because even though I love rock music and Bowie, etc., I always had this other narrative where everything from the Detroit Spinners, Detroit Emeralds, Ohio Players, that whole thing, I just loved dance music.
As
I say,
that books you've written about it.
But even before I started going to clubs. Yeah. So, in fact, when I got married, I asked Toby Anderson to DJ at our wedding, and I'm such a control freak. Not only did I give him a list of records that I wanted him to play, I even gave him the order. Yeah,
but you adapt to with people like Toby Anderson. They haven't got a clue.
Don't be mean. Go on. And so my sweet spot period is probably about 72 to about 84, 85.
Okay.
But my favourite dance track is probably "Got to Keep On" by the Chemical Brothers, because it's got a melody that sounds like it was written by Burt Bacharach.
Ah, there you go.
Which is, in Burt Bacharach, it's a big love of mine.
Well, Burt Bacharach was incredible. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. Okay, what influential track from your childhood and why? What is the most influential?
Well, the song that I probably feel most fondness towards is "Wichita Lineman" by Glenn Campbell, which I ended up writing a book about. In fact, we are at the moment, and myself and a friend, we are writing a musical using Jimmy Webb's catalog. Amazing. So Up and Away, MacArthur Park, Galveston.
You know, MacArthur Park's one of my all-time favourite songs. By the time I get to
Phoenix, Wichita Lineman, and we've been working on that for about 3 years. In fact, I have a meeting about it tomorrow morning. But I love Jimmy Webb's work because it's very maudlin, and he was a fascinating character because in terms of genre and idiom, and he was basically writing classics.
Mm-hmm.
So you take a song like By the Time We Get to Phoenix, which was covered by everybody from Sinatra to Sammy Davis Jr., Jack Jones, and yet he had a sort of hankering to be a James Taylor singer-songwriter type person. So he was always straddling the sort of the establishment and the sort of boho world, which I think makes him a very interesting and complex songwriter.
Okay, what song do you have on repeat? Like at home or in your office?
Well, the song I've
or
been
in your
playing,
car even.
The song I've been playing recently, weirdly, is "Help Me" by Joni Mitchell. In fact, I saw her perform. I didn't because I wasn't there, but I've obviously seen the film. Yeah, and I think it's rather sad to applaud someone for not being dead, and almost to be sort of resuscitated and come out of a huge illness. And I'm very happy for her.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can really compare that performance with how extraordinary she was 45 years ago. And it seems a bit meaningless to me, actually. And I don't think that cultural heroes should be applauded for still being operational.
Yeah.
It's like Norman Mailer writing a bad book. It's like he wrote some fantastic books, but no one should be above criticism. And I just think it's rather sad. Even though she's an extraordinary person, and there was that imperial period in the early 70s where she wrote some magnificent records, and "Help Me" is one of them.
I'm laughing because I just read the next answer to the next question, which is, what musician today inspires your style? And you wrote, no one does. I wear a blue suit every day.
It's true. It's very true.
No, there's no one that inspires you. Style-wise, that you look at and you think, oh my God, that guy,
No, I mean, I look at people.
Why do you wear a blue suit?
I mean, I can look at people and think, God, they're very well dressed, or they're handsome, or they carry clothes well.
Well, hang on, who gave you? One day you didn't just wake up and decide to wear a blue suit. Where did that inspiration come from?
I started having suits made for me before anyone else I knew.
Before Nick Knight?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. I started having suits made, I would say, in 82, 83. And it was a combination of just wanting to look different. And also, if you remember, in the 80s, all suits were that wide.
They really were.
And if you were my frame, and I was even sort of narrower and skinnier than I am now, it looked like someone had thrown a bedsheet over a pole.
Yeah.
So I got clothes made, so they fitted me, and so I first went to a guy called Jack Keach in Harrow, who made suits for Teddy Boys.
Yeah.
And I had some extraordinary Drake suits, and then I went to Chris Sullivan. Introduced me to a tailor. Called Chris Rocco, who ran Phillips Tailors in Kentish Town Road. And then Chris very kindly designed a suit for me. And then I started going to have suits made. And then I joined the Sunday Times. No, I joined the Observer and needed some more orthodox suits.
Yeah.
Went to Timothy Everest. He started making me suits. And then when I got married, I thought, I want a Richard James
How long
suit.
have you been married now?
For 25 years, I think. Happily, and then Richard became my tailor, and I've had
you guys,
dozens and dozens of suits made by Richard James.
You guys kind of put Richard James on the map, and you did.
It helped.
No, you did. You did.
I suppose I compare it to a Brian Ferry record of Roxy Music. Started off like this, and then the bandwidth got very, very, and then it just became about refining one idea.
Yeah.
And so I went in there to have a suit fitted, or to be measured for a suit on Friday. And Sean brought out all of these amazing fabrics.
And it's all going to be bloody blue.
And I said, it's going to be blue. Of course it is, yeah.
Right. So let's move on to the next question, which is best, most important song you've heard on a catwalk show. And you've been to a lot of catwalk shows.
In all honesty, I've been to too many fashion shows.
Fair enough.
I mean, I've been to too many. And I think it's possible to lose your critical faculty.
But there must have been one show what you went to and you just thought, wow.
No, but I tell you what, the great thing about shows in the early days, and I remember going to some of Vivian's shows in the early 80s, before I was in the industry, when I sort of hustled to get into the show. I think there was when Fashion Week used to be at Olympia, maybe. Some of those World's End shows where Malcolm...
They were the best, with Malcolm and Vivian.
And Philip and... that crowd. And the great thing is, I remember the first... I think it was probably one of her shows, where you went from high energy to Dvorak, to Bowie, and it was just the mixing.
Yeah.
And I think the right DJ, the invention that you heard on a catwalk was as inventive and as innovative as hip hop, as listening, not lyrically, and not in terms of ideology, but in terms of mixing music, mixing genres. Fantastic,
100%,
fantastic. And now I just go, not that I go very often, but it's the same old stuff. Someone will do a big orchestral opening, or it'll be disco, or it'll be,
But back then, to mix that music, it had to be spliced together. It had to be done on 2 bits of tape, and they had to be spliced together, and you had to do extension. It was a hard work to do that music.
I remember...
I used to do Catherine's, and I used to do everyone's...
I remember I was a DJ at one of the first St. Martin's alternative fashion shows in 78, 79. And I've still got the list of records somewhere. And it literally was. You had to cut everything together.
You had to cut it all together and glue it together. It was a mighty hard feat.
It's funny.
Best music video in terms of fashion?
Oh, easy. It's the Terence Donovan video for Addicted to Love for Robert Palmer, which now probably people think is really naff.
No, I don't agree. I think it's amazing.
I think it's extraordinary, and I think it surpasses the time it was made. It's very indicative and emblematic of the time that it was made in the mid to late 80s, 86, 87. But I think it sort of transcends that because it's just so sexy and so clever. Actually,
it was so simple.
Actually, the record isn't even that good, but it doesn't matter. There's something about it which is
the girls in the black dresses with the red lipstick.
Oh, it's brilliant.
And playing the guitars. That was it. It was so simple, so beautifully done.
By Liz Tilberis, I think.
But it was so beautifully done.
No, it's brilliant. Very simple. Yeah.
And for the time, it caused so much controversy. Everyone loved it. It was like, oh my God, it was literally, it was like a fashion moment.
But also, I think that it's a great example of when something can be sexy without explicit.
100%.
Porn has reached... It's like a supermarket.
Yeah,
you can have literally anything you want at any extremity, at any depth, any strength.
In the palm of your hand.
But, very good. But, a look, a wink, the way someone moves... the catch of an eye, all of that stuff, someone's hip, and that's sexier. And that video is an example of that.
That extremity isn't sexy, but it's how someone wears something, how someone holds themselves.
Yeah.
You look at people and you just think, oh my God, that person oozes sex, and they're completely fully clothed.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do. That's what they.
Were they wearing a lyre?
Yeah, they were wearing a lyre.
Yeah, they
black
were.
Alaya dresses.
That's right, yeah.
And red lipstick with their hair scraped.
The red slash.
And it's been copied so many times.
Yeah. But never bettered.
Of course,
never bettered,
never equal.
Really
Not
good.
Even equal.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Never. It's probably one of your best answers on here, actually.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'll tell you that. Okay, this question.
TWAT.
Even though I just said you look like a librarian today, what are you wearing? Is the question.
Right now?
Right now. Not today. It doesn't even have to be today. I mean, in general. You already said you went for a Richard James suit fitting last week.
I wear...
Who is your designer at the moment?
The best designer for menswear is Brunello Cucinelli.
Oh, really? That's a weird one.
I went through a period a couple of years ago, and still do a bit, where I went full Kendall.
Uh-huh.
Kendall on Succession.
Yeah.
That was me. That was me. Very expensive sportswear.
Yeah.
Very Wall Street.
Yeah.
Great example of someone who doesn't know anything about fashion, just buying into fashion because it's expensive.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I would say he's the best menswear designer. Although I'm very loyal to Tommy, who I love, because Tommy Hilfiger is one of the few people in the industry who is actually a friend of mine, who I love. I love Ralph's clothes. I like American clothes.
Right, okay.
Yes.
So we worked out what you're wearing. What song did you listen to getting ready this morning? Or do you actually, because you get up at 5 a.m, so you don't really listen
If
to
I
music.
played music, my wife would punch me in the throat. So I don't. However, the song I thought of when you asked me that question was Plasto Patricia by Ian Dury, because it has certain profane lyrics which remind me of you.
Yeah, of course. Do you know what I mean? Every other word. I think Ian Dury is one of those ones that, for me, it's kind of so overlooked on so many levels.
Great artist.
So amazing. So amazing. And people just remember from it, Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick, because it was like one of the biggest hits for him. But there was so much more to Ian Dury. Do you know what I mean? That people kind of forget about him.
Well, he emerged from the pub rock scene.
That's right, the pub rock scene.
He was almost a vaudeville entertainer.
Mm-hmm.
He had that great mix of that sort of art school mix of being, on the one hand, he was sort of 50% working class, 50% middle class, that tension. Very similar to Damon Albarn.
Yeah, very similar. And I'd say Jarvis as well. But
and he was crippled by polio.
Yeah.
So there was an insecurity there and an anger. Great lyricist, great performer. Fantastic.
I mean, when I was working in the King's Road, everyone loved Ian Dury. I mean, literally the Ian Dury T-shirts that everyone was wearing, at that point.
Blockheads.
Yeah, they loved it.
Yeah. No, I saw him many times. I mean, I saw so many people during that period. In fact, I saw lots of them. I used to live in High Wycombe, and we used to go to a pub called the Nag's Head.
Yeah.
And the person who booked the acts at the Nag's Head was a guy called Ron Watts, who also booked the 100 Club. Mm-hmm. So everyone who played at the 100 Club would play there. So I went through, I saw all the pub rock bands there, Dr. Feelgood, Alberto Wyatt, Leos Paranoid, Brinsley Schwartz, all of these people. And then the Climax Blues Band, all that stuff. And then suddenly the punk bands started coming in. And the Jam, Gen X, Pistols, Clash, Elvis Costello, everyone.
Out of anyone, whose wardrobe would you like to raid the most? Or who would you like to perform with if you had to perform some? You had the chance of like being Dylan Jones on guitar or Dylan Jones on backing vocals. Who would it be with?
Well, I've never aspired to that particularly. However, there's only really one person.
And I know who he is.
Well, of course.
It's the one. It's the B word.
It is. But can I just say, there's too much now.
Yeah.
There are too many books. There are too many bands.
You wrote most of them.
No, I wrote two, and one of them is all right. But there
only one of them's all right.
No, but I'm very proud of that. There are too many books. There are too many reissues. There are too many films. The whole fetish thing. Stop. Enough. Just stop.
We had Tracy on this podcast, I mean, as you know, a couple of weeks ago, and he almost turned into the Bowie hour. And I kept saying, right, no more Bowie. And then she'd bring it back to Bowie every time, because that's Tracy. And if you say to her, don't mention that, she's going to mention it even more. But her levels of Bowieism were totally different to anyone else's, because she was so engaged in it.
I can beat her every time.
Yeah, of course you would.
I can beat her every time. No, we both have... we were both impressionable teenagers when he was in his pomp.
Yeah.
And then we were both we were lucky enough to both know him, which was an absolute privilege.
What era did you know him in?
Well, I used to see him a lot.
Yeah.
And I was in various places where he was, late 70s, early 80s. But my period was really the early 90s. Because what he tended to do is, I'm sure you know, he went through periods where he alighted on people, and you were in the circle, you were a friend, And that was it. And you go for dinner, you go for tea, and there was communication. You had telephone calls and Christmas cards, and it was very flattering. And then the tap turned off, and then he was off somewhere else.
Yeah.
And he's been criticised for that throughout. He was criticised a lot for that throughout his career, but I didn't object to that. Would I trade being quite friendly with David Bowie for 4 years for not being friendly with David for 4 years? So, and I was never dim enough to think that we were on a par.
Yeah,
because he was David Bowie and I wasn't. But it was fantastic and very flattering, and I loved it. There's a great quote from Luther Vandross. The great Luther Vandross sang backing vocals on Young Americans. And when they were recording Young Americans in Philadelphia in 1974, because Luther was trying to make it as a solo artist, Bowie one day overheard Luther singing one of his own songs. And Bowie approached Luther Vandross and said, I really like what you're doing. I'd really like to take what you're doing and try and write a song with it. Would that be okay? And Luther Vandross said, look, I'm Luther Vandross. I live at home with my mother. You're David Bowie. You can do what you like with it.
Okay, so we love the fact that you did Bowie. What song would you have at your funeral? It's a really good question. I always like this one because people are like, oh.
Well, obviously, this is in my will. I thought about
Am I in your will?
Oh, yeah.
I better be.
Yeah, you get everything.
Yeah, everything.
You get the multi-poo.
I'd love the multi-poo. Go on.
No, this is in my will, and I thought about this a lot. And it is 4 Beach Boys songs. And
wow,
I've got it all worked out. It's In My Room, The Warmth of the Sun, then Till I Die, People in Floods of Tears.
Yeah, of course. You want the
floods of tears.
You have to have the tears, yeah.
Then the casket goes in.
Yeah.
Flames.
Yeah, go on.
And then as people turn to leave, we play All Summer Long by the Beach Boys, which is a very up-tempo song, which they played, the very last song they play at the end of American Graffiti. So I've got it all worked out.
But that's going to bring me even more tears. Even though you think it's a really upbeat song, that's going to make everyone leave, like crying with tears down. You know it.
But you want people to cry.
100%.
An old friend of mine, Adrian Devoy, a writer, he was asked this, and he said he wanted to go from Atmosphere by Joy Division into Atmosphere by Russ Abbott.
Okay, what track, right?
Yeah.
Represents how you feel about life right now?
Although I'm very morose and very bad-tempered, I actually think I'm a very positive person.
I agree. You are a very positive
I am an
person.
optimist, and I like songs that are about optimism. And one of my favourite songs is "Wake Up, It's a Beautiful Morning" by the Boo Radleys, which is 30 years old now, 29 years old.
My age.
Yeah. Came out of the height of Britpop, and you just hear that and you think sunny days, like catching sunlight on a building. You're filled of euphoria and positivity. Yeah, fantastic. I love that song.
It does exactly what it's meant to do.
Yeah.
And, what I'm going to ask you now, out of all of your jobs you've had, what's been your favourite?
Well, the one I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah?
Yeah, because
you're doing a remarkable job at the moment.
Well, you're very kind. No,
you are.
I have a great team. We are a great team.
Yeah.
They're incredibly responsive, driven, smart, work incredibly hard. Our digital traffic has it's increased by 1/3 in the last 6 months. Fantastic. But yeah, I love it. Great brand and great team.
Well done on that. And I just think, I want to tell you that I think
the only problem is with terrible columnists.
Me, you mean? Watch me win awards, bitch. The thing is, for me, I think the hottest Dylan Jones moment was when you used to wear an MA1 jacket. A black one you used to wear, like a little black nylon bomber, very Buffalo.
Are you saying I'm not hot anymore?
No, you were. This was when you were at your hottest. This is when me and all my little gaggle of gay mates all used to fancy you. Is that Dylan Jones?
You don't fancy me anymore?
Not anymore, babe. Listen, Dylan, it's been a real pleasure having you on.
That's great fun. Thank you for inviting me.
No, we can't do a fashion radio podcast series without having Dylan Jones on it. As I said to you before, even though you don't think of yourself as being, you know, one of the leaders in that world of fashion, you really are. And there's so many people owe their careers to you and direction from you because you stood the test of time. So it was only inevitable that we had you on here.